Our guest today is Mayor of Chicago. There are a few things I would like to share with you. Number one, the City Club is enormously grateful to him and his wife, Amy, for both visiting and speaking at Misericordia and encouraging everyone in the City Club tradition to give back in the same rich measure they have received. Number two, the City Club of Chicago proudly takes credit for our small part of the fabulous publicity which our next speaker earned by joining us at the Special Olympics Polar Plunge, inviting Jimmy Fallon and helping raise $1.2 million for children and adults with special needs. Number three, our next speaker's frequent attendance at the City Club of Chicago events and encouraging his top commissioners to speak is very much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mayor of the City of Chicago, Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. You hear all that time you've been here at the City Club. You're reminded of that great phrase by Groucho Marx. You never want to be a member of a club that will accept you as a member, except for the City Club, obviously. Father, I want to thank you for the prayers beforehand. They were direct, to the point. I'm going to highly recommend my rabbi call you before the high holiday services. Seriously, I want to say thank you to the City Clubs for the valuable contribution it makes to Chicago's civic dialogue, which is always robust, especially around election time. This is my fifth and final speech on my plans for addressing the biggest challenges facing the city of Chicago, because what we decide to do over the next 4 years will determine what the city will be like in the next 40 years. I've spoken about neighborhood economic development, investing in our public schools, political reform, our city's finances, and public safety. I believe every candidate for mayor should offer detailed plans for our city's future. That's what campaigns should be about: solutions and the strength to solve real problems that the people of the city of Chicago face and seize the opportunities the city of Chicago faces, and not just about catchy sound bites. I'm here today to talk about the state of our city's infrastructure, which was the foundation for our rise as a global city. A world-class city cannot have a 21st century economy without a 21st century foundation. That's why we've invested in our rails, our runways, and our roads. It's why we have focused on safe and reliable transit options, walkable streets, access to high-speed internet, parks, and recreational space. In total, we've invested more than $7 billion over the last 3 years in upgrading our city's infrastructure, creating nearly 30,000 jobs in the process. These investments are key to the neighborhood economic development, they're key to creating the next generation of good-paying jobs, and they're key to keeping Chicago's competitive edge in a global economy. We've gone to Washington and Springfield to secure funding for these projects so that the burden does not fall on the Chicago taxpayers alone. This is one place where all Chicagoans can benefit from a mayor who doesn't take no for an answer and also knows where the money is hidden and buried. In the last 4 years, we've secured roughly $700 million from Washington, and to support these investments in construction projects. In Springfield, we've also secured another $1.3 billion for those efforts. We've used these federal and state funds to support our local investments over the last 4 years in making sure our infrastructure is ready for the next 40 years. To improve traffic and help prevent the recurrence of potholes, we have paved roughly 1/4 of the roads in Chicago, improving daily commutes to work and school and recreation. We are completely rebuilding our water system, replacing 900 miles of water pipe that's 100 years or older. 750 miles of sewer is either being replaced or relined. 167,000 catch basins are being totally rebuilt, rebuilding or affecting 2 of the largest water filtration plants in the world. More than double the rate of replacement before I took office. By making the hard choices, the necessary choices, we're upgrading some of the oldest water infrastructure in the country. Many of these mains date back to when Chicago hosted the World Columbian Exposition in 1893. And in fact, on my desk, or in my office, is a tree trunk that actually, not far from City Hall, was replaced 3 years ago. That was a tree trunk that actually carried water here in the city of Chicago in the 21st century. We've replaced 230 miles of mains, 55 miles of sewers over the past 2 years, and we'll continue on that track. Over the decade of work, this will create 18,000 jobs, save billions of gallons of water we lose regularly to main breaks and also to leakage, and help alleviate our sewer overflows. When the project is complete, it will save 2 years of residential water use that we used to lose just to leaks and to breaks. We've also completely rebuilt the Red Line South, on time and under budget. After years of neglect that shortchanged the South Side communities with slower, less reliable transit, we invested $425 million to shave 20 minutes off the commute from 95th Street to downtown. And while many, you could have gone on for a second so I could have swallowed. That would have helped. And while many advised us to take the politically safe route by completing the project only on weekends over 5 years, I believed that the residents of the South Side had waited long enough. That is a commuter right there. With help and cooperation from surrounding communities, the city of Chicago, under Forrest Claypool and Terry Peterson, and everybody that worked on it, completed the project in 5 months instead of 5 years, and did it on budget and on time. And as rewarding as on time and on budget, it created 1,500 jobs, many of that work going to residents from the community that was affected. And we've also set the standard from the Red Line now throughout the whole system of the city of Chicago as we modernize the rest of the CTA. We are also rehabilitating stations across the city, improving service through technology, investing to upgrade the Blue Line to O'Hare and downtown, our fastest growing L line, and shaving 10 minutes off the new Blue. A new station at Cermak on the Green Line will continue growth in the historic Motor Row and South Loop neighborhoods and improve connections to McCormick Place. Our schools are also seeing investment so that we ensure that every student, every neighborhood has access to high-quality public schools. We've made building and technology upgrades to 400 separate schools and installed air conditioning in 140. And by the end of my second term, we'll meet my goal of putting air conditioning, my goal and Barbara's goal and David's goal of putting air conditioning for the first time ever in every classroom throughout the city of Chicago. Our goal is students focus on what their teachers have to say, not on what the temperature is in the room. And we continue to modernize our oldest schools that are experiencing overcrowding. We are also ensuring that Chicago truly is the city in the garden for every family across the city. We are more than 90% of the way toward the goal of ensuring that every child in Chicago lives within a 10-minute walk of a park. Sometimes I joke some kids will have to walk just a little faster to make the 10 minutes, but they'll get there. We've added 750 acres of new parkland to our city, an increase of nearly 10% in just 4 years. That's the equivalent of adding more than 2 grant parks to the Park District system. This unprecedented investment in expanding access to our parks is why the Chicago Park District received in 2014 the National Gold Medal Award for Excellence in Park and Recreation, the first time any major urban system ever received that recognition. Infrastructure is about more than roads, rails, and parks. The right infrastructure provides an economic anchor for growth in the years to come. We've been making strategic investments in our neighborhoods that will create new hubs for economic growth across our city. Take Bronzeville, where we are building new bridges across Lakeshore Drive to connect the community to the lake, and a new community park and arts center. It's not an accident that also now Mariano's is building a new store in Bronzeville. On the west, everybody can speak up for their neighborhood if that's what you want to do. On the west side, near United Center, we're rebuilding a new CTA station and a new community college campus for Malcolm X. And in Humboldt Park, we are building the Bloomingdale Trail with 15 acres of new park space, and we see the incremental improvement in the values of residential property. These and other investments have created thousands of good-paying jobs for the men and women who are doing the hard work of building a new Chicago. Just as important, these projects are building the foundation for the jobs of the future of tomorrow. Our transit improvements, new parks, and revitalized neighborhoods already are attracting the businesses and people who will keep Chicago thriving for generations to come. I'm here today to tell you that our work is not finished. In our fast-changing world, if you're not constantly investing in the future, you're surely to be stuck in the past. So over the next 4 years, my administration will continue the job-creating infrastructure investments that are so important for our workers, our neighborhoods, and our overall economy's health. Today, I want to talk about 3 types of infrastructure investments that we will be making in my second term. First, we will ensure that we provide safe and efficient transit options. Second, we'll expand access to parks and recreational areas. And third, we'll create more anchors of economic growth in our neighborhoods. It starts with our roads. After paving 1,000 miles of roads in the last 4 years, we will pave a minimum of 1,200 miles in the next 4 years. That means over the entire 8 years, we'll have repaved nearly half of the streets in the city of Chicago. We will complete the new Blue Line by 2019, a nearly $500 million investment in the Blue Line that will take 10 minutes off the trip from downtown to O'Hare, while upgrading the stations at Logan Square, Jefferson Park, Grand, Chicago, Division, and Addison, and create 1,300 jobs in the process. And we'll build a new superstation at Washington and Wabash that will improve the service in the loop and help Chicagoans from all neighborhoods to get to and from work. We'll continue our modernization of the Red Line from Howard to 95th, rebuilding the northern branch, upgrading 6 stations that were built during the Roosevelt era, Teddy Roosevelt, and I'm not joking. When he said Rough Rider, he meant it for the next 100 years. And completely rebuilding the 95th Street station and the Wilson stations as well as the tracks that are completing the connection. This station and track work will create nearly 5,000 jobs and will contribute to the economic growth in the surrounding affected neighborhoods and communities. And when we're done, the entire Red Line, from Howard Street on the north to 95th Street on the south, will be completely modernized for the 21st century. While 95th Street Station will become a new jewel of the system, the second busiest in the entire system, it will also serve as the starting point and the jump-off point for the eventual expansion of the Red Line from 95th. We will continue planning for the future by strategically investing in an extension of the Red Line South, by purchasing needed properties and working with our federal partners on funding opportunities. We'll also continue to modernize the CTA's bus fleet by adding at least 300 new buses and rehabbing more than 1,000 others. We'll improve the bus speeds and reliability through state-of-the-art investments in traffic signal technologies, expanded bus-only lanes, and redesigned streets and bus rapid transit to remove current bottlenecks and speed traffic for all users. Roads that are safe and well-maintained and reliable public transit are fundamental to the building blocks for an economy that works. But as more and more of our residents rely on bicycles to get around, we're also going to maintain our momentum in turning Chicago into one of the most bike-friendly cities in the country. After fulfilling our pledge to build 100 miles of protected bike lanes, we will build upon the success by strengthening and upgrading the existing 225-mile bikeway network and improving connections between bikeways to ensure bicycling continues to grow. And we'll continue to expand the very popular and growing Divvy bike sharing service. By this coming summer, we'll have one of the largest bike sharing networks in North America by expanding to 475 bike stations with 4,750 bikes. You can do the math from yourself from there. Over the next 4 years, we'll strengthen the Divvy network by expanding access to the south and west sides to reach a total of 6,000 bikes by the end of my second term. Second, we'll continue our major investment in expanding parks and recreational space. We've always known that access to parks is a major factor in where families decide to live and whether they decide to stay in Chicago. But we also know that parks are a major economic boost to our neighborhoods, just like public transit. A recent study showed that parks in Chicago added nearly $900 million to the property values of the homes near the parks. Our parks also drive citywide economic growth. We are seeing it firsthand how this works along the Bloomingdale Trail, which is stimulating investments in Hermosa, Humboldt Park, and Logan Square. We will deliver on our goal of ensuring that every child lives within a 10-minute walk of a new park, of a park. And core to making this a reality is our Chicago Plays initiative to rebuild and update 325 playgrounds representing 2/3 of the city's playgrounds in the city. We are halfway there, and we will complete the entire rebuilding of the 325 separate playgrounds in the next 2 years. These are not just playgrounds. They are places where kids learn to play with others, something I'm still working on myself. And they are that's Amy for you. And they are public spaces, you obviously know who Amy is. They are public spaces where bonds of communities are built and strengthened. We also make more playgrounds available outside of school hours by opening hundreds of CPS playgrounds after school and on weekends. And we will build more than 36 parks and playgrounds in underserved neighborhoods and at CPS schools that lack them today. Building these public spaces is important, but we've been equally focused on bringing new cultural, new athletic, and new recreational activities to them as well. And thanks to the initiatives like Night Out in the Parks throughout the city, Windy City Hoops, Shakespeare in the Park, and others, our parks have served more than 365,000 residents with these activities just in 2014 alone. And with the Bloomingdale Trail on its way to completion this spring, we're bringing innovative linear park model to other parts of the city. We are now beginning the process to study what other communities we will launch the next Rails to Trails opportunity, whether that's Pilsen, Little Village, or also Englewood. So bringing this innovation that you can see firsthand changing and transforming what's happening in Logan Square and Humboldt Park into other parts of the city. We must also accelerate our investment in transforming the Calumet region, which used to house Chicago's steel industry. Changes in the economy over the decade may have shrunk the steel business, but they've also created a unique opportunity for Calumet's revitalization and rebirth. We've already revived the old U.S. Steel site with a performance venue, extended Lakeshore Drive to the area, and are building a nature reserve and a bike park at the Big Marsh. To build on this effort, I'm working and will continue to work to secure the federal designation of Pullman as a national park. This has been a focus of mine since the beginning of my administration, and I will continue to lobby on its behalf. Next, we will seek, for the first time, a national recreation area designation for the Calumet region from the federal government and connect the running and bike trails along their lakefront. Our vision is for Calumet to become a dynamic, diverse economy with unparalleled recreational opportunities, access to the lake and river transit with the new businesses and the new jobs that come from that designation. Third, in the second term, we'll continue to make strategic investments that will stimulate economic growth and new jobs in our neighborhoods. In my second term, we'll start investing in rehabilitating one of the nation's most important transit hubs, the Union Station, which in my view is fighting below its weight class, while turning it into an anchor for continued revival of the near West Side. As rail travel becomes increasingly in demand at Union Station, the Union Station must modernize to retain its role as a central and growing transit hub, linking neighborhoods to jobs and neighboring states and counties to the city of Chicago. As the third busiest rail terminal in the United States, with roughly 120,000 daily passengers, Union Station is more than just a train station. It is one of the engines driving Chicago's continued growth, connecting Amtrak, Metro, the Blue Line, and the new CTA bus terminal. It is a key link between commuter and intercity rail and the new Central Loop bus rapid transit corridor we started working on this year. This corridor will result in faster, more reliable transit to help people get between home and work in an efficient manner. But today, Union Station is not where it needs to be in order to anchor the growth we expect to see in the future. Years of underinvestment have resulted in a facility that does not meet the needs of the 21st century workforce. The ceilings leak, and the train platforms are regularly at full capacity, as we all saw during the last year's polar vortex. While some of us were jumping in the lake, there were other people standing on platforms. The overcrowding can reach dangerous levels when trains are delayed. Over the next 4 years, my administration will continue to work with the federal government, the state of Illinois, Metro, and Amtrak to launch a much-needed modernization of Union Station. The complete overhaul that is needed will require a multi-year, $500 million investment that will create thousands of jobs and breathe new life into that corner of the West Loop. As we announced this morning, this modernization will start this year with a $12 million investment by Amtrak to renovate the station. And we will actively pursue the other federal funding resources to complete our grander vision for a thriving transportation center that anchors further economic growth. Union Station is just one example of the important projects that we will be working on that will not only modernize critical transportation infrastructure, but also spur new economic growth that brings new businesses and residents to the surrounding neighborhood. Taken together, these plans provide an ambitious vision for our city. But I believe firmly in Daniel Burnham's adage, make no little plans. The truth is that everything we want for Chicago's future rests on doing the fundamentals right. Investing in our roads, investing in our rail system, investing in our water system, investing in our parks and other facilities and our technology on which prosperity today depends on. These investments are creating thousands of good-paying jobs for those who are doing the hard work of rebuilding a new Chicago. More importantly, though, it lays the foundation, our infrastructure investments, when combined with our educational reforms, for our efforts to cut red tape for businesses and bring jobs to our neighborhoods. And our new community policing strategies are part of a broader strategy to make sure that Chicago's future is brighter than its past, that every family and every neighborhood participate in that growth. It is not an accident, since we launched Building a New Chicago, in modernizing our mass transit, modernizing our airport system, modernizing our roads, our bike lanes, and our internet access, that the city of Chicago is the #1 city for families moving back into. It's not an accident. It is not an accident that we have modernized our transportation and other systems, our basic foundation. The city of Chicago is the #1 city for corporate relocations. It is not an accident that while we modernize our infrastructure, the city of Chicago is the #1 city in America for direct foreign investment. It is not an accident that as we modernize our infrastructure, the city of Chicago is the #1 park system in America. It is not an accident as we modernize our infrastructure, the city of Chicago is the #1 library system in America. And it's not an accident as we modernize our infrastructure, we also have the #1 Little League team in America. So much of Chicago's growth in the past and in the future. We are the only inland city that is a global city with a global imprint. First and foremost is because of the highly educated and skilled workforce at every level. Second is because you can get anywhere in North America and anywhere in the world and any part of the city through transportation. Modernizing our transportation system, modernizing our parks, modernizing our schools, modernizing and also including the 21st century means broadband connections for every parts of the city, ensures that Chicago will continue to be a global leader. If we go back to the past of not investing in our infrastructure, Chicago will go back in time. By keeping us building for the 21st century, we will continue to build this greater city and build a greater city for our children to inherit. By having the will, the determination, and the plans to invest in the future, we can secure a future for every child and every family in this wonderful and great city. Thank you.
What took you so long? All right, Mr. Mayor, we have some questions for you. I have a hunch there'll be a lot more coming. Well, first question you kind of answered about Union Station. Milt C's capital and infrastructure. There's been talk about revitalizing Union Station for years. How is this plan going to be any different? Fair question.
It kind of reminds me, do you ever remember that great quote by Henry Kissinger? Does anybody have any questions for my answers? Nah, he was serious, I'm joking. Well, Milt, it's on page 12. It's 12 million. On a serious note, here's what we're doing. There's $12 million we're already using from Amtrak funds to modernize the station. I've been in conversations already with the Department of Transportation, Metro, all the parties together, because it's a system not just for Amtrak. The truth is, if you don't modernize Union Station, you're not going to have high-speed rail. If you don't modernize Union Station, you're not going to bring the capacity, as I said in the speech, that Union Station, given it's the third busiest rail hub, is actually fighting below its weight class. There are federal funds for this. We've been in conversations with the Secretary about it. Today's announcement of the $12 million is a down payment on that greater vision.
Okay. Normally, we don't take questions from aldermen. We'll make an exception today for you.
Nor do I.
I don't blame you. Fran, did you get that answer? Good. All right.
I don't think she needs your help on that. Thanks for pointing it out. Just a little light humor, but thank you. Go ahead.
We could go on, but there's questions.
Yeah.
Alderman Moore, I'm sure this is a general question about the city. What steps, do you anticipate undertaking to encourage transit-oriented development along the CTA rail corridors, such as in Rogers Park? I know that comes as a shock to you.
Thank you, all those from Rogers Park. Actually, it's a very good question. You know, and it's also a great question from the alderman. We are behind as a city. We have adopted some for transit-oriented, or TOD as they call it in short, but we've limited the scope of the geography where you can get transit-oriented investment and development for residential development. I actually want to work with the City Council in the next couple of years on expanding the boundaries upon where we're shorter, if you think about it, or more limited than a Boston and other cities have done it, have seen greater economic growth. Now, I want to say a larger point about this. You can see throughout the city of Chicago, when you modernize a station, as has been done in the alderman's own respective ward, where the retail and commercial district gets revitalized in that neighborhood. So while you think of it as a station for commuting, it is actually a hub for other economic, retail, and commercial vitality of any neighborhood. And doing the type of things that I want to do in the next term, and I'll work obviously not only with the alderman, the city council, but also to make that type of investment allows us to expand the boundaries as other cities have done and seen greater residential development alongside the development of a modernization of a station in particular. So we have constricted that growth to, I'm doing this by memory and I probably shouldn't do this, I think it's about 500 feet from a station, and we need to expand that boundary so you can see greater development and opportunities for the city of Chicago and the residents that are there.
This question is from that well-known liberal Mark Weidermiller. Mark, raise your hand so everyone can see you. There he is. All right. First sandbag. I got my property tax bill today. Remember, Mark is a George III guy. Can you promise to freeze city and school levies for now? Yes or no?
Yeah. Well, no, that's, Mark, thanks for the question. I think you can take a page out of the past for me, and that is for all the aldermen also here who've been partners in this effort. I presented 4 budgets in a row that are all balanced, without a property sales or gas tax. All 4 years in a row, we put money back into the rainy day fund rather than take it out. And in that period of time, we eliminated the per employee head tax. And for 4 years in a row, we increased investments in after school, summer jobs, early childhood education, and basic neighborhood services. Because we collectively did the hard things and the difficult things of looking at what reforms and efficiencies we could do better. And a classic example of that, or a couple examples, because of changes we've made and other things that we have done in the administration, we're building the first new domestic violence shelter in the city of Chicago in a decade. Because we decided to have Catholic Charities deliver certain services to homelessness, we reinvested and created 200 beds for homeless youth and 4 regional centers to give them the support services. Because we were willing to actually challenge our politics and go on to a grid system, we took the resources and brought recycling citywide, so every neighborhood in the city of Chicago and all residents actually now have recycling in their community. Those are the changes in which we have done it without a property, sales, or gas tax 4 years in a row.
Neil, sorry.
That's okay.
Neil Nosen, Immunize Chicago. That's an organization, okay. No, not gonna go there. I believe that roundabouts are safer, more time efficient, and more fuel efficient, right, Ed? Than traditional intersections. What discussion is there on roundabouts? Like, you know what it is.
No, I want to hear you describe it.
I do know it. Since you decided to be educator-in-chief, tell everybody what a roundabout is.
Go rent the movie European Vacation. When they go around, there's Big Ben. There's Big Ben. The mayor's slippery, all right, I can tell you that. All right, go ahead.
Paul, I want to thank you for that description of what a green vacation, family vacation looks like. It's going around. Look, let me say this. We just today received a recognition from the Rockefeller Foundation as one of the 100 resilient cities. That award, and they're going to be paying for staff, as to how to take our infrastructure and start to make investments that are critical so that we can deal with the unforeseen events, mainly driven by climate change. Look, in the last 5 years, folks, we have had 2 once in a century flooding situations in Albany Park, and 2 once in a lifetime kind of weather from snow and freezing in our winter, both in 2011 and last year. The new normal is the abnormal. And as somebody who coined the phrase, never allow a good crisis to go to waste, it's the opportunity to do big things that you never thought were possible. Rather than wait for the crisis and then figure out how to do something. How to make investments to go forward so you actually get ahead of that moment. And we now have a $50 million green infrastructure investment, and we are now testing that theory out in parts of areas, not only of roundabout, but how to have a more permeable both pavement as well as drainage system, so our sewage does not run into our lake, because our lake and our fresh water is the most important commodity we have going forward, and it's essential for the city of Chicago's future, because fresh water is going to be the most important commodity over the next 40 years. So investing in the water project to not lose water, investing in new technology to green our infrastructure, and bringing together the research grant between the University of Chicago and Ben Gurion University ensures that Chicago, at every level, from building our roads to thinking about what better water management, is getting ahead of the curve and becoming the most resilient city for the 21st century.
We have a couple more questions. This is from Father.
Still not going to answer what a roundabout is. So.
That's okay. That's okay. You're a straight arrow guy anyway. Summer Roberts, Director of Community Relations, Loyola University. There you go. It's a very serious question. Chicago has a documented crime problem with gangs, drugs, and shootings, often in the news. How do you plan to make all of Chicago safer in your next term?
Summer, is that right? Did I say that right? Summer? Okay, so thank you very much. The most important thing we can do is to give the kids of the city of Chicago their childhood back. Too many kids in our city have experienced the familiarity of gunfire and not the familiarity of childhood laughter and play. And it's being stolen from them because of gun violence. Now, you can go through the statistics, but as somebody who regularly visits parents, it's a little comfort. The single greatest thing we can do, or the two, is to ensure that our kids have a safe place to go when the bell's off after school, a safe place to, and route to get to school and home, which is what we've done with Safe Passage, which is why Chicago's attendance at our schools is record high, one of the reasons. And also ensure that when the bell's off after the end of the year, they have a safe place to go for a summer job. Not just a job and not just a paycheck, but all the values that come with it. And one of the things I'm most proud about is that, we had one of these social scientists come in very cynical about our summer jobs program, One Summer Chicago Plus. And it showed that not only was it a good summer job for June, July, and August, it paid dividends for 16 months in the safety of that adolescent. So investing constantly and regularly, which the city council members that are here deserve applause for that, we have increased our investment because when we started, 14,000 kids had summer jobs. Last year, 22,500, and next year, 24,000 kids based on the new budget. Almost a 60% plus increase in making sure our kids have something to do in the summer months. But make no mistake about it. If we're gonna bring safety to every part of the city, not just some parts, we must pass fundamental reforms to gun laws. We can't get there without it. Do we need to use police better and more strategically? Absolutely, which is why we have Operation Impact. Do we need to provide our children the place and space to be safe, secure, so they can explore themselves and learn? Absolutely. Do we make sure that we, through the Becoming a Man BAM program, have to invest in our children so they have a mentor and an adult who shows them right from wrong in a way that they have not yet had? Absolutely. But if we're going to support the men and women who put on the uniform every day to protect our streets, and the neighborhood groups that come to want to see and experience the safety in their neighborhood like other parts of Chicago, we have to stop the flow of illegal guns into our streets. I've worked on this with both the Brady bill and the assault weapon ban to make sure those were the law of the land. And we now to make sure that Springfield backs up the hard work that all our residents in the city of Chicago deserve and expect. It is wrong to have a parent tell a child to get off the front porch because it's not safe. That's not the city of Chicago we want. It is wrong for a parent to feel like a child has to be indoors in the lockdown because it's not safe. We are taking away from our children the freedom of enjoying this wonderful city. And if we're going to do what we need to do while we're making all these investments that are the right thing to do, we need to back it up by giving every part of the city the public safety so that residents in South Shore know that Saguenay cares and will invest in their safety. God forbid something happens there. And that when something happens in Roseland, Ravenswood doesn't feel happy until we make sure every child in Roseland has the opportunities to live out their God-given talents. And if we're going to do that, we're going to have to muster the political will to fundamentally change the gun laws in this state so they back up the hard work and expectations of both our law enforcement and our residents.
I think we got two more. Continuing on the summer theme, we have Kurt Summers, City Treasurer. Where are you, Kurt? All right. Now, the simple answer we all can give, but you can give a more complicated one. How can the people in this room and everyday Chicagoans help in this ambitious infrastructure effort? For February 24th is an obvious answer, but...
Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Green on a roundabout answer. Yeah. Well, let me say this. This is somewhat, Kurt, thank you for that question. Look, our future as a city is really about our past in many ways. And let me say this. I said this earlier, and I want to draw the point out. We are the only inland city that has a global economic and cultural imprint. Having placed not just O'Hare, but Midway, and not just whether we're the busiest, although that is. First of all, you should know, at O'Hare, we now take in about 29% of all air cargo from China. So when you think about commuter, you also got to think cargo. It's a tremendous economic opportunity. And our global capacity, so when infrastructure is not, yes, it's about investing in passable roads, essential for a neighborhood. So people can get to work on time and they're not dodging potholes and going around at 5 miles an hour when they should be going the speed limit at 25 or others. Or modernizing our public transportation system. Our past as well as our future is built by Chicago, as I always say. If it runs on rails, runs on roads, or runs on runways, it comes in and out of the city of Chicago. We are the inland port of America. It's a tremendous investment opportunity for the city of Chicago to maintain its status and build on that status and gain. And so working together to secure the resources out of Washington and Springfield, to continue to have a strategic investment strategy so that, to give you an example, the reason why I made that red line from Howard to 95th the priority, 38% of the people in the city of Chicago that take public transportation take one line. It's not just the red line of a seven-part system. It's where 38% of the people take our system. The system had been running. It ran great for 100 years, but at least on the north side, and then since 1969 on the south side. But the wear and tear shows the impact. And you can't ask people to get to jobs on time or get to jobs if you have a system that's going at 15 miles an hour rather than 55 miles an hour. You can't. It's not an accident that the red line south saw a declining ridership while other parts of the system saw a rising. People were actually making a very smart decision. It's not a reliable system. These investments in our roads, our rails, revitalize our neighborhoods, make our workers that build them economically competitive, and make the city as a whole tremendously competitive for the future. Both the ability to have an airport system where you can get anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country on time, weather permitting, and something we're working on at City Council. Also from your home in any part of the city to where you work in a reliable way. The key, in my view, is to secure the resources with a strategic plan from both Springfield and Washington, and to organize in a way that you can do that. I'm clear that I think that we need to have a transportation bill in Springfield. I think we have to have one in Washington, regardless of that. I'll continue to work with Senator Durbin, Senator Kirk, and the members of the congressional delegation to continue to bring back a lion's share of the resources that we had not done to the full extent that we did in the past. But no, now, it's not really sexy, but make no mistake, our economic future, and the reason I wanted to dedicate one of the 5 policy speeches to this, is that without these investments in our transportation, we will not stay as competitive, and we will not see the economic benefits of job growth and economic benefits to the entire city and to the neighborhoods that make up this great city.
Yep. We have the final question. Erhard, you have a good question, but we want to keep it on topic. Ms. Wick, you have a great question, but not on infrastructure. So, the professor.
I'll answer them later. Or whoever has. I'll do that later.
Yeah. Okay, go to the press conference.
Okay.
Remember, there'll be 2 press conferences. That bar will be one, and I'll be in the other bar. Okay, here we go. I'm giving away martinis. Peter Scozzi, where are you, Peter? To close. Peter, where are you?
Right back there.
You made the room. Okay, here we go. Metropolitan Planning Council. What are your plans for maximizing the benefits of transit in the city through transit organized development?
That's kind of like the first question. No, that's Joe. Okay.
I'll just summarize it all up.
Hold on.
What is there, a little disturbance here? The mayor, let him answer it.
No, it's... I feel like I failed my test, given that the questions from Union Station to the roundabout. Let me try to make the case. We're not an island as a city, and our transportation ensures that we're connected to the rest of the country, and the globe. It is, and give you just kind of like an example. GE Transportation moved their worldwide headquarters to the city of Chicago. First and foremost, because of the incredible talent we have in the city educationally, and the institutions will keep that fresh. The second ability and the reason they moved is because of our investments in our transportation, so they can get to clients throughout the globe, and those clients can come to them directly any day of the week. And that the workers can get to and from the office incredibly efficiently. That's an economic strategy that builds on the strengths of the city of Chicago. When I was talking to Motorola about when they were leaving Libertyville and they were thinking of Sunnyvale, California, it is not an accident that they thought of the merchandise market and we convinced them to come to the city of Chicago. The first place we put on Kinsey, a protected bike lane. I know that it may not be popular and some people may not like it, I get it. But the protected bike lanes are, from a safety standpoint, keep drivers and bikers in separate areas. And people that are biking are going to bike more. You might as well do the right thing for safety. But it is also one of the driving impacts because the city of Chicago has these protected bike lanes that is recruiting the companies and the employees of the future. These investments, whether it's in your airport, your bike lanes, or your mass transit, and continue to modernize them, it is not an accident also that the city of Chicago is the second largest public transportation system in the country. More people take our CTA in a single month than take Amtrak nationwide all year. That's how significant the system is. Now, getting people from home to work, as somebody who takes public transportation regularly, twice a week, is significant because people want that time efficiently, whether they're on smartphones or whatever, to not just work when they show up at work, but be able to do work on their way to work. They may not be happy, but their employer is. Modernizing that system is key to our economic growth. Now, in addition, that means working with our state, our county, the surrounding areas to continue to do it, which is why I also think, and I've made a priority on Union Station, because it's a unique space. If you're going to have high-speed rail, which Midwest is becoming a hub for, you need a modern Union Station, connecting us in the multi-state, tri-state area in a 21st century version. It is also a space that not only Amtrak operates, Metro, the New Blue, and soon our bus terminal that's going up, and the bus rapid transit. So people coming from wherever part of the city or county areas can also get to other parts of the loop efficiently. That will allow Chicago to stay competitive for the 21st century. Every one of these investments create the jobs of today, good middle-class construction jobs, and create the foundation for a growing and prosperous future. And that's why, while it is not the most important, it's an essential piece of having an economic strategy for the future, and you have to show a determination, the solutions and the strategy, and the will to get things done, like when we did the Red Line South, that you have the will to get things done because the essential opportunity for the city of Chicago relies on having a modern 21st century infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay.